This is a chat. It's interesting. I am supposed to be chatting on Facebook Live. Never done this before. I'm exploring the ideas of interaction available in this time of social media and just looking at how to go about this process of communicating with individuals. I've placed on this particular item as an intro the concept of my own call to the ministry. And the premise is that a person should talk about that which they know. Beyond a theory, they should talk about a practice. And beyond a practice, they should talk about something they have proven in their own lives. And at this point in my life, as we enter into the last days of 2019, I'm 67 years old now. My father at one time when I was 16 told me I would be dead before I was 18 years old. So actually, before I was 16, he told me I would be dead before I was 18 years old. And so the amazing thing is that I would have lived 50 years beyond that time. I have lived 50 years beyond that time. And that is amazing. From that kind of pronouncement at that particular moment in time to this particular time, how did that occur? How did that happen? And what are the contents of my life that has made this possible or brought that about? And so whether you're looking forward or backwards in your own life, then to script this idea, to understand the script that you've already played, your own journey, and then the script that you intentionally play going forward. That's the hero's journey. For me, what occurred is that shortly after my father said this to me, I recognized, of course, that it was a real battle of will, if you will, between myself and my father. And the battle, I understood, was between who was going to be the man in the house I was living in. And what had occurred in my life is that I had taken the definitions of what it meant to be a man from what my mother had said about my father and from what society had said about my father. Now, listen to what I just said. I had taken the definition of my father from what my mother had said. She had her expectations. She had given birth to 9 children by my father. And she had expectations before she got married. And then also, she had given birth to 9 children by my father. I have 8 siblings. And she had an expectation of what life would be like. And at the time, my father was living a particular lifestyle, and it was not one that really she approved of. She did not approve of. And I was her oldest son. And if you look at the stories of the hero's journey, which is one of my favorite topics, there is a part of that story that has to do about the relationship between the father and the son. The father and the son. That story is an interesting story. Whether you're talking about the biblical story, you can always see the relationships between the father and the son. I can think of the relationship between Isaac and Jacob and the father-son, Jacob and his sons, or Israel and his sons, his 12 sons. There's an amazing relationship that is there. Or if you do the Heavenly Father and then Christ as the Son. And now I want to say that very clearly, the Heavenly Father and Christ as the Son. But before we skip to Christ, you have the Heavenly Father and Adam as a son, or Adam as the son, or humanity as the son of God. And then humanity, the Bible makes it very clear that we are all sons of God, children of God. Psalms 82 and verse 6, ye are gods, all sons of the Most High. And so that particular item, that when I say Adam, or Adam, this man of the ground, that individual is humanity. And we were made in God's image, and the breath of life was breathed into us. And that has never changed. That has never changed. The breath of life still remains in us. We are children of the breath of life. That it remains. And whatever we may think of ourselves, we are still children of God. And it is really, the inner journey is to come to the awareness of that. That's really an inner journey all by itself. This idea of being born again is really being awakened to the realization that God is in, through, and as us. That's really what this idea is about, especially when you consider the statement that I just said. My mother had defined for me who my father was. My mother had defined. And society. My father had grown up on a farm, and he was now living in the city, or in a place where there was factories. And he had never, it took me a long time to understand this, because when I was, so to speak, in opposition to him, I did not understand him. He had grown up on a farm, and he never fit the rhythm of the farm and the rhythm of the city or the factory are two different rhythms. And he had tried year after year after year to fit with the factory, and it never worked for him. And he likely did not understand himself. He had no psychologist or no Dr. Phil that helped him to understand what it was that was happening within him. And he was not self-aware about it to the point that he could discuss it with someone else. And no one that I know took the time to actually discuss it with him. And so because I grew up in what was a city, and I just, I'm on the street and talking and running with the fellows. That was not my father's life. And I did not understand him, and he did not understand me until that day when I had to make the decision about my father and what our relationship would be going forward. Because the Oedipus complex has to do with this idea of the son becoming the father, killing his father. And so I made the decision that no, I will have a relationship in which I define my relationship with my father. He would remain my father, the husband of my mother, the one who was king of his castle, and I would remain his son. I would remain his son. And I defined that relationship. And I defined it by virtue of identity. He was such. And when we were in that house, he was king. And it made a total difference as to how I related to him and how I defined myself. I knew that I had to set up my own kingdom, my own house, if you will. And that was a major thing to learn because I learned that I had different ways of processing life than my father did. And so that was a point of self-awareness for me. It kept us both alive. And so much so that when my father, as we became closer and closer together, and even after I left home, which I did shortly after that conversation because he allowed it, then I also, I went to live with another family and studied because I had been taught to read and to write and to do math, all of those things. I thought I may have been doing them well, but there's a period of time that I was not doing them as well as those around me. I may have been doing them well where I was, but I was not doing them the same way. And therefore, I really relearned to read and to write, and am still going through that process even now, different ways of reading and writing. And so it was a process for me to grow and to understand life. But as I did so, my relationship with my father became one of respect on both sides. He saw what I was doing, and part of what I was doing was to honor him and to understand him and not to be ashamed of him. In society, Daddy could do so many things. Daddy understood the farm, everything that went with that, having to do with tobacco and the care of gardens and all of that. I remember so much about that as far as Daddy was concerned, how in the city we still had a garden and how he would plant that garden, how proud he was of that garden, how it looked, and everything about that garden. I remember people would be amazed. There were times we were supposed to, and we did, and he did, what we call turn over the dirt or plow the field, and we did that both with a plow, which was a plow that was sometimes pulled by an animal, perhaps what we call a mule. In regard to that, there was a push plow where you did that as well, and it had one wheel on the front of that, and we pushed it through the dirt in order to turn it over. And there were times that we had the tractor come in and turn the ground over, and there were other times we had to dig it up with a shovel. All of those were things that were done, and I helped a little bit because I was not a farmer. I lived on a farm for a period of time, but I was not a farmer. I was never a farmer. I did not understand the seasons and all of that, but Daddy did. Daddy knew when certain things were ripe, as we say, in the woods. And I went with him, as we say, hunting huckleberries and all of those kinds of things. I was not a great hunter. I only shot one animal in my entire life. And when I shot it, I was sad because I had killed something that had blood. And I didn't mind eating things, but I didn't want to kill it. I just did not want to kill it. The idea of the item that I killed, and then its blood running, that was abhorrent to me. I just felt I had taken a life. So it was something that I did not enjoy doing. And so there are often times that I have perhaps, not really often times, there are just times when I thought I was mad enough, angry enough in a moment to hurt someone. But thankfully, that's not been my particular experience in life. I've been in the military, shot a rifle there, all of those kinds of things. But the idea of, thankfully, I was not required to actually go to war or anything like that and to actually kill people. There are people who are traumatized because they did have to kill people, and that's called a moral injury. Their minds really have not really come back and calculated and looked at the idea of what they did. And when they do look at it, they are pained mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They are pained by what they have had to do. And there is a way that they need to, if they desire, it's their decision. They have to take their own journey. But veterans and even individuals who have gone through a process where they have been involved in various things, whether it's gangs, whether it's different organizations, whatever it may be, you go through a process and forgive yourself and know that you are forgiven of God. You are still a child of God. Understand that whole process as far as what his life is concerned. And then understand also the temporariness of this life that we're living. Understand that so that you understand that this is a part of your journey, your life's journey. This is a part of it. This life there's something temporary about it. There's something temporary, meaning that it comes to an end in this particular sphere. It comes to an end in this particular sphere, but there is a self that is within you, that is you really, and that self is eternal. That self is eternal. That self is spirit. That self is God. Because the text says, in him we live and move and have our being. And then there's another text that says, we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. So when you put all of that together, again, that's the hero's journey. And it's the recognition of that we are journeying toward. The acceptance of that, the knowing of that, the understanding, the practice of that, the living of that. That's what this journey is really all about. So it is a major, wonderful, wonderful experience to do that. And I needed to do that and understood the whole aspect of doing that when it came to the hero's journey for Dennis L. Waters. And so it was a very powerful experience for me. And so it was just wonderful, honestly, to tell you the truth, wonderful for me. When I look at that as a call, my call would have begun at the time when I was 15 years old. A certain level of call. I remember sitting in a clear spot in the woods and meditating, really, and having thoughts about life, the meaning, having conversations with God about life, my life, and what it meant to be alive. That's the hero's journey, or the heroine's journey. That's your journey in life. What does your life mean? And I ended up graduating from school, and while I was studying and everything, of course, the thought came, what do you do when you finish school? Now, for me, it was a novel idea. I was the first of my parents' children to actually finish school. The first son of my mother, and the first of my parents' children to finish school. I had 4 sisters that were older than me. 3 of those sisters remain alive to this day, but neither of them finished school prior to me for various reasons. One of them passed away in the 12th grade, which was one of the most defining experiences of my life. I did not know it at the time. The place that I went in my own thinking, in my own mind, but I know now more about the impact of her passing, transition, and how it impacted me. In a certain kind of way, I went to another universe as far as my emotions were concerned, as far as my thinking was concerned. It was just surreal, just entirely surreal. This was before, of course, the writings of various individuals. I remember a lady called Kubler-Ross, who wrote on death and dying, because it was a taboo subject, and no one had actually explained to me. You remember, I'm a son, and as they said in times past, men don't cry, and you become a man early. People may today become men later, but in my time, you became a man early. I tell people that I went to work in the field, as we call it, when I was as young as 7 or 8 years old. Now that may be unusual today, but you must understand, I would like for you to understand that as African American, the part of the history of African Americans is the aspect of our forefathers being slaves. And slave children often went to the field long before 7 and 8. And so coming down through the line after slavery, going at 7 and 8 for my family, that was still not unusual. A lot of people, most of my neighbors, the same thing. The children are in the field at an early age. It was normal then. So as I said, you become a man early. You grow up early. You're making money early. And that whole piece. But as I come to the point where I am graduating, then there's the contemplation of what do I do after I graduate. And one of the thoughts that I have is to go to college. Now, my uncle had gone to college. He had not finished college. He had done 3 years in a 4-year program, but he had gone to a historically black college, now a black university, Hampton University. And I had read and understood about going to Howard and Hampton and had submitted my application to both of those universities, I believe, and had been accepted, I believe, to Howard University at the time that I graduated from school. However, I did not immediately go to Howard University. I went into the military. I had to wait until I was 18 and a few other things, but I eventually went into the military and stayed for 3 years, even though I wanted to get out earlier. Stayed for that 3 years. Had amazing experiences there, some that I consider positive, some were just simply learning experiences. The thing that happens with a major part of that is that when I come out again, I have to adjust. And I really had a challenging time to adjust to the civilian world. Again, there was already the experience of the death of my sister, the experience with my father, and I needed help coping with coming out of the military. I did not know it. I thought that what I was going through was just simple, normal life. We did not have conversations with psychiatrists, psychologists. Really, we just were seeking to do life. And didn't address things like emotions, how you felt, and all of that. That was not the root. But one night, I was in school during the day, working at the same time in a cotton mill where I live. And there would be times I would sleep in class and all of this kind of thing. But I had a dream. And this dream was that I was standing among giants, a circle of giants, and I was like a pygmy, I say. And I recognized that these giants were my ancestors. I wrote this long ago, wrote it down long ago. That was one dream. The second dream was that I was standing in front of a group of individuals. I'm standing in front of them, and I am teaching them, guiding them. And the thing was that whichever way I lean, they lean the same way. So if I'm leaning to the left, they lean to the left. It would be my left if I'm standing up, their right, as I stand before them. And then the same if I go the other way. If I go right, they go to their left, which would look like we're both synchronized as one, going the same way. And I told that to my uncle, who was a minister, and he said to me, "You have a call to ministry. You have a call to leadership." And it took me years to understand that. Years to understand that. That's how I received my call to ministry. In theory, it was only after I worked, both got married and worked, and achieved a level of success in the business world, that I finally accepted the call. And the real thing, I initially received it, refused it, and then accepted the call. And the reason that I accept the call is that I wanted to give myself totally and completely to that which was what I was meant to be and what I was meant to do. And that has kept me for, at this point, over 30 plus years, 40 years really, of my life. 30 plus years, 1978, this would be 40 years of my life. 1968, actually. 1968 is one thing, but the whole aspect of going to ministry, that's a 1978 decision I made, and graduated in 1982. And that entire thing, 1978, I made that decision of going to school, and then ended up graduating from school, the proper school in 1982. And then that whole piece, because I was in corporate America, I was moving forward and making extremely good money for me, and had the potential of continuing to go forward. But I had to make that decision about what my life would be. I'd already been in the Army, had recovered from this whole aspect of getting out to a degree, but I now had a wife and children, and I wanted to do that which was right for me and right for them. And I wanted to make sure that I lived the life that I was called to live. And that's what the inner journey is about. And it's talking about inner because it has things that are changing inside, and those changes affect what happens on the outside. And for me, there was healing that took place on the inside of me, my emotions, my thoughts, my relationships with myself and with others, all of those things. I'd already talked about the relationship with my father, to the point that he was treated far better by me, and I helped others to understand him. And even though the society may have considered him to be one way, I celebrated him as a man and highlighted the various things that set him apart as a man. And so these kinds of things were all powerful for me. We had a positive relationship as he grew older, just a very positive relationship in my estimation. Again, amazing experience for me. Amazing experience for my dad. I helped him to be happy, and I'm happy about that. I helped my mom and daddy to be happy together. I'm happy about that as well. I helped them to be proud. As I became a minister, I helped them to be proud that they were my parents. I'm proud of that. That whole experience for them. I remember them. I celebrated with them, led them in their celebration of their 50th wedding anniversary. What a miracle that was for them. So I'm extremely grateful that I took the journey of self-awareness to become aware of those things that were within me. I still have much growing to do, but this journey was just a powerful, powerful journey. And it still is. It still is. Because, again, the ancestors were around me, and I was growing, and the intent that I could see was that I would grow to be their size. I was already accepted. I was already a leader. That's why I was in the circle. And this kind of thing really is depicted in this day and time in the movie Black Panther, which another one is coming out in either 2021 or 2022, I think, something to that effect. And we're doing, I'm developing a set of coaches that will use the Black Panther as a coaching guide I'll tell you more about that later, but use it as a coaching guide. This inner journey of self-awareness, and using the hero's journey, but the Black Panther as a hero's journey, as a way to coach people to live their positive life, dealing with issues that have to do with, as I said, being African American or African descent, all of those kinds of things, so that you become your best self. Very powerful ideas that are related to that. But the ancestors were around me, welcome me into their circle. They see their DNA inside of me. And so they welcome me into their circle. But just like in this movie called Mulan, where what is his name, Eddie Murphy, is the individual who is seeking admittance into who is seeking to be of the full stature of the ancestors. He's the dragon. You remember that. He's the dragon. And he wants to be in the full stature of the ancestors. And Mulan, of course, is the young lady who wants to be a warrior so that her father would be honored. And so that entire thing goes on there. And so this story, again, the hero's journey, when it says that the father-son, it could be the daughter-father relationship as well. Very well done in the story of Mulan. And so this entire thing that's there. And to understand that, how that fits in with your life, because this stories that you see all around you, the movies and the interactions with others, is the inner journey. That's the most important. It's not the journey that one is having as far as the outward relationships with other people. It's the inner journey. Is sometimes you have in mind that what is happening is something that is both cause and effect from something outside of you. Meaning on the outside, that you look at the things, the people you're relating to, the things that are happening to you, what your life is, all of that. You look at that as a cause, like somebody hits you or somebody says something about you, and then you say something in response. They cause you to do that. It could be a relationship, husband, wife, close relationship, friends. It could be a person at work, whatever it may be, a relationship, siblings, cause and effect. Something outside of you happens, and then it affects you, and you respond in a particular way. What we want to do in the inner journey of self-awareness is the recognition that cause, C-A-U-S-E, when it says be cause, then you be the cause from the inside. You be the cause from the inside, no matter what effects are outside or seemingly outside. Your being, my being, is the cause. My being, no matter what the history has been, whether it's the self as the individual, whether it's the self as a community, whether it's the self as a race, an ethnicity, whether it's the self as a country, no matter what, it becomes a matter of understanding the principles, the values, the beliefs that are constantly being refined, defined, and refined. That's the matter of being. the aspect of what is called transformative learning theory, that theory has this aspect of what is called in the hero's journey is called a call to adventure. In the 8 A's is called awareness, or really is a coming alive, where you understand things differently than you did before. In transformative learning theory is called a disorienting dilemma. And it's a dilemma. It has at least 2 possibilities of how something can be processed and understood and accepted. At least 2. It could be all numbers of things, but at least 2. You've got options. And when those things are considered, you get to choose. How will you choose? Well, there's critical evaluation or critical reflection. That critical reflection is based on critical questioning. That critical questioning can come about because of your own asking of smart questions. Smart questions. Not why me questions. Not why me questions. But questions that move you forward to the goals and purposes and passions that will benefit you. Smart questions. And you could ask those questions of yourself, or you can ask those questions, have those questions asked by a community of people, or you can ask those questions. Those questions can be asked by a coach. But they become smart questions for which you are accountable for the answers. To go deeper and to go deeper and to go deeper and to go deeper. That's something that adults can do because they become responsible for the answers, for the outcomes. They be the cause. They be the cause. And so nothing outside of the individual is the cause. Neither your heredity, not your genes, not your environment that you grew up with, not the trauma that you've gone through in life. Nothing is the cause, but what you say is the cause. Nothing. And you examine that, you get past the emotions, and you understand the aspect that you can rewire, if you will, or reconnect, or remind yourself. Now, this is a powerful idea. It is the most powerful idea in the entire universe. This is the most powerful idea in the entire universe. It was said to be as such by philosophers like William James. It is said to be as such by the very hero's journey. The words revolve, evolve says the same thing. It says you choose to evolve. You choose to grow. You're not stuck where you are. You choose to accept the call to adventure. You choose that. That takes courage. Cowards can't do this. Cowards criticize and blame others for what they do. But when you take 100% responsibility for your life, you choose to evolve, to be better. And even if you've been good, you could be great. You choose to evolve. And that's what this inner journey is about. And it could be that you want to be better, or you want the world to be better, or you want your family to be better, or you want your children to be better, or your biological family, your extended family to be better. You see a cause inside of you. You see how not just becoming better yourself, but also how you're becoming better impacts others, inspires others. Become the cause for change. Become the pebble or the rock that's thrown into the water, and let the ripples just go out from you. You become the center of the change. You become the one that we've all been looking for. Journey together with others to be the cause. And again, please understand that I'm an African American. My sister that died, and the younger sister directly above me, she was younger to her. And we were both immensely impacted by my sister's death. Immensely. It changed us in ways that we did not know at the time. It made no sense whatsoever to us. We were children. I was 13. My older sister that was directly above me, was 15. I think she left home shortly after that. She was just impacted. We did not know. We did not know. But I mentioned the one that passed away, and then my sister directly under her, directly over me. Those two actually marched in the marches of the 60s, inspired by Dr. King, and others, and others, and others. They were young people. And I was told that I was not allowed to actually march at that time. I was not allowed. They didn't take me. And I didn't really know what was going on. I was young. Consider that I was 13 in 65. And for a major part of from pretty much 61, let's say 61 to maybe 63, I would say, they are marching. So in 61, I would have been 9 years old. And 63, I would have been 11. So I'm too young to march at that time. And somewhere, I guess, around 63, I guess, I don't know. I don't have exact dates. I just know that my sister got sick. And we had to attend to her, even though I didn't do too much attending. I was baffled by the fact that she was sick. She had taken me to school. First day. It was probably, again, one of those calls to ministry. One of those calls to adventure, if you will. It took me a while before I actually accepted that call, because the shock of that was just devastating to me. Devastating. So what I'm talking about is really moving past the things on the outside addressing the things on the inside so that you become the cause, or that you process the material that's coming to you. You are aware. I was unaware that what was happening around me was impacting me the way that it was impacting me. And as a result of that, I did not respond well at all to the events. And it left me where it had longer than that particular moment, longer term effects. But by being in the moment, aware of one's feelings, aware of one's values, aware of one's beliefs, and going to the core of who you are, because you have taken this journey and understood its implications, then when something happens, you stay awake. You understand that you're the cause of it. You're the one that is making the determination about how it affects and how it affects your life, what meaning it is given. And you choose a meaning that will serve you best. You choose that meaning. And that's what this training, not preaching, not even teaching, beyond all of that, this empowering training is really about. You set goals about who you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to have. You don't rely on, if you're an adult, then you don't rely on your children being better than you. No. Or not only that, but you determine that you will be better than you. As you grow, you'll become better. And you'll be good, but then you'll be better. And as you are good, you'll become great. And you may do some things now, but you'll do more. You'll increase your influence, your energy, your power, your ability. You may do one thing good now and you become great. As Bruce Lee said, that 10,000 kicks, but you'll then do 10,000 swings with the arm and 10,000 other things and 10,000 other things. You will become master of you, all of those. And so this is part of this inner journey. We've talked about my call. We've talked about transformative learning theory, adult learning theory, critical reflection, critical questioning, disorienting dilemma. Talked about the hero's journey, how all of those fit together with what I call the 8 A's of transformation, which is just another way of saying the same thing about this inner journey of self-awareness to become one's authentic self, who you were designed to be by the creator of the universe, whom you are already a part of, a child of. And to take this journey, the benefits, of course, are beyond anything that you have ever thought. In the biblical statement, it's called forth that you will receive the kingdom, that you will receive all kinds of gifts. And rarely do we want to talk about, many people talk about, they talk about it in terms of money and jobs and positions and significance, or rarely do they really talk about significance, but success on the job, all of these kinds of things. But all of this can come as a result of this journey being taken. All of it should come. But the real thing is the inner journey does something on the inside of you that you know your value, and you present your value, and you present yourself as valuable to the world. You are one of a kind. You're unique in all the world. And there's nothing like being unique. A copy is not as valuable as something that's unique, that's one of a kind. And you are unique in all of the world. And it is the discovery of that uniqueness, your passions, your values, your gifts, your talents, what you have, your voice, how you shine in the world, how you contribute in making the world a better place. And so this has been Dr. Dennis L. Waters Sr. here on Facebook Live. It's been a good journey. Blessings. Take care. Bye-bye.